So we are going to now work on our main activity. So in the main activity, we want to do the save. So when you click on the save record, we want to link you directly to the handler so that it can save the record into the database. So we are going to now pass the values, what you're going to do, you're going to get the values from the user input and then pass them to the the user inside the database. So we'll begin with saving records. So these ones we had already created them with our on click on the button. So we'll just say val, then we call id, then we'll just call the id from activity. So we'll say val user id, so we'll call uid, then we get, so it's get text, so you say dot text, then we'll say dot to string. So that's for id. Then you can say val name equals to, then we'll say u name, then we'll say dot text, then we'll say dot to string, then we'll say val, then we call email equals to, then we say u email dot text dot to string. So we have those three: val id, val name, then val email dot to string. Then you're going to call the database handler that's going to take these items to the handler. So we'll just say val, then we call our database handler equals to, so we specify it as a database handler, then we'll say equals to, call our database handler, then we pass this activity. So we have database, so database handler, then this activity. Then now we check. So we are going to use the dot trim. We know what the dot trim function does. It just removes any white spaces that may be there. So we'll now say, so it's time to check if it's empty and then save the record. If it's not empty, then we are going to do, so we'll say if, so we'll say if id, then we'll say dot trim is not empty, and so we'll say and name, that is name dot trim is also not equals to empty, and then and email dot trim is not empty. So if id dot trim dot, if id without space is not empty, name without space is not empty, and email without space is not empty, then we can save the record. So we'll just do save record. Else, so you're going to come and write the code else, then we can now do a simple toast. So you can just say toast, then dot make text, then we can do application context. So you can do this, the context is going to be this, and then we can say values cannot be blank, and then we're just going to do toast dot length long. So we'll do toast dot length long, and then we'll do dot show. So we have that. So if it's not empty, if it's now empty, it will give us values cannot be blank. Then if it's this, so we can save the record. So you just come and write the code for saving the record. So we can just say here val, then we call our status, then we'll say equals to, then we call our database handler dot add student. So database handler dot add student. Then what do we want to pass? We want to pass the student. Then we'll say integer. So we'll say integer dot pass int. So we'll say integer dot pass int. Then you pass ID. That's for the ID. Then we'll do comma. Then we'll say comma name. And then we do comma email. So we have that. So integer dot pass int. So we pass the ID, we pass the name, and then we pass the email. So we have that. So employee. So we have student. Then it's just one, yeah. So we have database handler dot add student. So we pass the ID. So ID we pass it as integer. So this is what we do, pass it as integer. Then we pass the name and we pass the email. Then we can say, so we can say if it's greater than 1, that is if it's not empty. So we can say if now it's greater than -1, that is it's not empty. Then we can do a toast dot, then we say make text, and then we can just pass the application context. This, then we can say record saved, and then we'll do a toast dot length long. So you do a toast dot length long, and then we'll do a dot show. So we have that. So once the data is saved, we are going to clear the value. So you can just say UID, then we'll say dot clear, so that the record does not remain there if it's saved. So you say dot clear. So we UID dot text, then we do dot clear, then we say uname dot text clear, and then we say email dot text dot clear. So we have that. Well done for us. So we have, if your status is -1, that is if it's greater than -1, which means it has saved the record. So you have that. So if our status is, we say our record is saved, and then we clear. So that's the save record part. So we will just go through it again. Pick, call your database handler, then you check if it's empty. If it's empty, if it's not empty, then you save the record. If it's empty, you tell us that values cannot be blank. So that is for save record. So we can now go to our next, which is view record. We proceed. So for the view record, we're just going to So going to our function, we call our database handler. So we'll just say val, then we call our database handler, then we specify it as a database handler, then we say equals to, then we call our database handler, then we pass this. So once we have that, then we will call the view student method from the database handler class to read the records for us. So what we do, we'll now come in and say, so we'll call mval, then we'll say student. So you can just say student, then we ensure that it's a list. So we'll say student list of which class. So we call our student class. So we'll say student class. So we say student class, student class. Then we can say now equals to, call database handler. So equals to, then we call our database handler, then we say dot, we call view student. So that's the list we are going to use. Then we can just come and call var, then we'll say let's use val. So we'll say val student, then we give array ID. So we'll say student array. So we'll have student array first ID, then we have name, and then we'll have email. So we'll say array ID, then we'll say equals to, we call an array, so we'll say array, and then the array will pass string for us. So we'll say array string, then we pass value for the student. So we'll say student dot, then we call size. We are going to pass now. Then the next, so we ensure that our null, or because it's a string, we have to pass it as a 0. So we'll just have that, then we place it as a 0. So we do that, pass it as a 0. Then we'll say val, then we say student array, then we say name equals to, then we call array pass string, and then we are going to say student.size. So it says std dot, then we do size, and then we'll pass null. So we'll just come here, pass our value as null. So that's for name, and the last one is going to be for email. So we'll say email. So we have those 3. So then we do our index then. So we'll just come in here. So we'll just go back, sorry. So we'll do now our index. So we'll call our variable, then we say index equals to 0. So we begin at 0, then we'll check for the values. So we'll say 4, then we say e in, then we'll say student. What do we check for? The ID. So we'll say std array ID, then we pass the index, and then we'll say equals to, then e dot user ID, then we'll say dot to string. Then we do name, so we'll pass name, so we say name, then we do the index, so we'll say equals to e dot user id, next is username, then we do dot to string. Then lastly for email, so we do email, then we pass the index, so we'll say index, then we'll say equals to e dot, then we'll say user email, then dot to string. So we pass those three, then we'll now do index plus plus. So now we are going to create a custom array adapter that is now going to pass the view items to us. So we'll just say val, then we call my list adapter, then we'll just say equals to, we link our list adapter, so we had called it my list adapter, so we pass the context, so our context will, the first one is going to be this activity, and then we pass id, name and email, so we'll just pass, so we'll just pass student id, pass name, and we pass email. So the list adapter is going to hold for us those three items. Then we are going to inflate it. So to inflate it, we'll just say the link of the list view. So we'll say list view, that is the id dot adapter, list view dot adapter, then equals to my list adapter. So we have those three items. So that is going to be the view for us. So quite simple and straightforward for the view. Then we go to the next, which is delete. So the delete will involve a few things. First one is you're going to create a dialog box. So this dialog box, it will pop up when we want to delete an item, so that it brings the alert dialog for delete, and then now we can now call our handler and delete the item. Similarly to update, so we'll begin with our delete, that is just right there. So delete record, so we'll just say we'll create the alert dialog, so we'll just say val, and we'll say dialog, we'll call a dialog builder, then we'll say equals to alert dialog, so we call in an alert dialog dot builder dot alert dialog dot builder dot, then the activity is going to be this. So dialog builder, then we pass alert dialog dot builder dot this, then we do the inflate. So we'll create a variable inflator, so we'll say val, then we'll call inflator, val inflator, then is going to be equals to this dot, then we'll say layout inflator, then we'll say now val, we call our alert, our dialog view, then we'll pass the inflator, as in we'll pass the custom that is going to view. So we'll say dialog, so we'll give it a dialog view equals to, so equals to, then we'll say inflator dot inflate, then we'll pass r dot layout, then we pass the delete dialog inflator, then definitely we are going to pass the argument. So the next thing now is we are going to do a dialog builder. So we'll just say dialog builder, then we'll say dot, then we'll do a set view. So we'll just say set view, and then we'll pass the dialog view. So we have done our build record. Then we are going to call our delete ID. So we are going to just say the item that we want to delete and how it's going to be inside our dialog box. So we'll just say val dlt ID, dlt ID is equals to, then we can say dialog view dot, then we can say find view by ID. So after I do find view by ID, then we can say r dot ID, then we can say dot delete ID, then we can say as and edit text. So we can say dialog builder, then we do dot set title, so do dialog builder dot set title, then we'll pass a delete. We'll do now our set title, we'll do set message, and then so you can say our set title, so you can say set title to be delete delete record, then we can say dialog builder, then we say dot, then we say set message, and then we can say enter ID. So we do the set message. So now we can now do our set positive button and set negative button. So when you click on the positive button, that is delete, it will delete the item. If you click on the negative button, delete, then it will just cancel the dialog interface. So we'll just come in and now say, so let's all be keen as we do this. So we'll say now dialog, so we'll call our dialog builder, then we'll say dot set positive button. So let's ensure that this is in place first. So we'll now say dialog builder dot, then we'll say set positive button. So when we do the set positive button, you're going to pass the status of setting a positive button. Then we also do dialog builder dot, then we say set negative button. So we set the negative button, and we're going now to pass the same. So we'll say we'll just pass the negative button and say negative button is just going to be cancel, and then if you cancel, it means you do not want to lay it. So you're going to say now with this, you'll say just dialog interface, then you say dot, then you'll pick the second option of on click listener. So we'll just say on click listener, then it will work that out for you, and we'll just pass. We are not going to just do anything in there. Then now for the set positive button, so for the set positive button, we can say a text. So we'll just say delete. So when you click on delete, then you'll just do a dialog interface, then we'll say dot on click listener second option. So when we do our on click listener, then in here we can now perform the delete function, that is called the function from the database handler. so itakuwa sawa. We'll just repeat what we now did for the database handler. So we'll say val, then we call our database handler as a database handler, then equals to, then we call our database handler, then we pass the context. Then once we do that, then once we finish that, so we can just do a simple now if statement and check if the ID part is empty. So we'll just say if delete. So before we do the if statement, we have to indicate where our delete ID is coming from. So we'll just come here inside and create a val, then you can call it delete ID, then will be equals to, then we'll just call DLT ID, then dot text, then dot to string. So we have that picked for us. So we'll now come and check, is a delete ID is a say dot trim, then we'll say then it's not equals to empty, then we can now say if it's not empty, we are going to delete the item. So we'll just say else if it's empty, what should it do for us? It should give us a toast and tell us that the ID cannot be blank. So we'll just do a toast. So you just do a toast, and then you say dot make text. Then you can say the context. First, our context can do this, and then we'll say ID, and you can say cannot be empty. So you can just say ID cannot be empty. Then you can say comma. Then you'll say delete ID. I'll do a to dot, then you say length long. Then once you do toast dot length long, we'll do a dot show. So if you pass the ID, if it's empty, it will tell you that. If you now pass the ID correctly, then what should it do? It should just assist us to delete. So we'll just say so if delete ID, then we can say val, then we call our status equals to then we call our database handler, then we'll say dot, then we call delete. So we'll say delete student. We call the delete student method, then we pass what do we want to delete, student, and we now do the pass ID because that's what we're going to use. So we'll just do integer, then we do dot parse int, then we'll pass the delete ID. Then the rest we can just indicate them as empty and empty, because we're not going to pass those ones, we're just going to pass the ID, then it will delete for us. So username will be empty, email will be empty. So we'll pass that. Then now we can call the status to show us if it has deleted or not. So we'll say if, so we'll say if status is greater than -1, then we can say toast dot make text, then we can do a context, which is this, then we can say record deleted, and then we do toast dot length long, then we do a dot show. So we have that once our record is deleted. So those are the items we are going to hold. So the next part is we are going to work on is finishing up on this. So once we finish up on that, we do, so we have our negative button, so this we can just place it here. We can now do the dialog builder, so we'll just say val, then we call off b, then we'll say equals to, then we say dialog builder dot create, then we can say b dot show. So we have that. And finally you have created the dialog. So for update it's going to be similar. We are going to first do the dialog box for create, so we can just pick the dialog up to the dialog view so that we just don't have to go through the same whole process. So we'll create a dialog builder, then we call the inflator, then we call the dialog view, then we set the view. Then now we can pick all the IDs. So here we picked the delete ID as the text, so we'll pick ID, email and password, then we can now do the set. So we'll just pick the dialog builder just as it is, the alert dialog, so that we don't repeat ourselves in writing the code. So in our update we'll simply come and place the dialog builder. Then now once we finish up placing the builder, we'll pick the IDs. So we'll say val, then we'll say ed, then we'll say ed id, then we can say equals to dialog view, then we'll say dot find view by id, then we'll say r dot id dot update id, and then we'll just say as edit text, then we'll say val, then we'll say ed name, then we'll say equals to, then we call dialog view, then we'll say dot find view by id, then we'll call in the r, then we say dot id, then we'll say dot update name, so we'll say update, so I don't know if update name, so we can look at our list, our update dialog. So we'll just come to update dialog .xml. So for update name, so our ID is update name. Oh yeah, so it's capital U, so you can just make it lowercase u, so it's we can easily access it. So just make it so you can just make it lowercase u, so you say update name. So when we come to main activity now, we have the update name. So instead of uppercase U, then we say as edit text. Then we can say ed email, then r.id dot update email, then we'll say as edit text. So we pick ID, we pick name, then we pick the email. Then we are going to call in the database handler now that we've picked all that. So we are going to create an instance of the database handler. So we'll simply come and say val, then we'll say database handler as a database handler, then we'll say equals to, then we say database handler, then we pass this. So we have that. Then we'll now check if the EDID is the update ID is not empty. Then we can call the update employee function. If it's empty, then we don't call the function. So so this we've finished up with that. So we'll once we do the dialog view dot set, so these are some of the ones that are going to be inside our update. So we did dialog builder dot set view dot dialog view. So the next one we're going to do set title. So we want to do the set title, we want to do the set message, and then we want to do the positive buttons. So then we can now work on our handler well. So we'll just say now our dialog builder, then we'll say dot, then we'll set positive button. So we can start with set title. So we can do set title. So set title, we can say update record. Then we do a set message. So you can just say dialog builder dot, then we do set message. Then set message will be enter data, say enter data, then we can say dialog builder dot set positive button. Then we can now call our handler and now work on it. Then we'll do also the set negative button, just like we did for delete. So we'll just say now dialog builder, then dot, so we'll say dialog builder dot, we do set positive button, then we'll do our dialog builder, then we do dot set negative button. So once we do a set negative button, for the set negative button it's quite simple. So we'll just say if it's set negative, we'll just do a cancel, and then we'll just now pass say database handler, or we call the dialog interface, sorry. Then we do dot on click listener second option. So we have that set to us there. Then now set positive button. So with set positive button, so you can remove that there, we are going to put it inside our set positive button. So set positive button, then we can just say update, then we call our dialog interface, then we say dot on click listener second option. So on click listener second option, we'll just come in here and so you can place our database handler which we're going to use there. But before we use that, we're going to call the IDs to ones which we are going to use for update. So we'll just say val, we can say update ID equals to, then we can just say it's going to be AED ID, the ones that we set on top there. Then we say dot text, then we say dot to string, then we'll say val, we call update name equals to ed name, then we say dot text, then we say dot to string, and then lastly we say val update email equals to ed email dot text dot to string. So ed email dot to string. So we have that. So we'll check if now the ID, update ID is empty. Then if it's not empty, we can now do the update. So we've already called the database handler class, so we can now just simply check. So we'll just go down for more visibility. So we'll say if, so do if, then we'll say update ID dot trim equals to, then we can say not empty, then we can say and update name. So if update ID dot trim is not empty, and then we say and update name dot trim, then we'll say is not equals to empty, and then we'll say lastly, so ID and then and date email dot trim, then we'll say is not empty. So if these three are not empty, so if these three are not empty, then we are going to call the update function. Else if they are empty, we can just say, so we'll just say else, we can do a simple toast, values cannot be empty. So you can just pick the toast that we had written here, so that we don't have to do the whole typing again. So you can just say we can do value cannot be empty, so you just do a simple toast for update record. So you just say else, then you can say values cannot be empty. So we have that, values cannot be empty. Then now we can simply come and do our update simple update function. So we'll just say, so if they are not empty, then we'll just come and call our status. We'll say var status equals to, so let's ensure it's val so that it's changeable. So say val status equals to, then we'll say database handler, then we call our update student, and then what do we want to update from? Student. And what do we want to pass? So we'll do integer dot parse, so pass int, then we can call update ID, the first one, then comma, and the next is going to be update name and update email. So we'll just say update name, and lastly update email. So once we have the update name and update email, we can now simply come and check if our status is empty. Then we say record updated. So we can say if our status is greater than -1, then we can simply come and do toast.make text. Then we can say record updated, and that's it. So we have that. Then now we'll just come and next part is just easily just come and just write down there. We can now easily come in now the say val, then our builder, then we call our dialog builder dot create, and then we'll do b dot show. So we have that. So that's simply it for the dialog. So we've created the functions, we've worked with save, we've worked with view, we've worked with delete, and we've also worked with update record. So we've seen how all of them are and how we can use them. So before now we end this and come to do a trial, I want us to just go to our Android manifest.xml. So we go to our Android manifest.xml. So we go here, so we're going to give some permissions here for storage. So you just come to your manifest, then you go to your Android manifest.xml. So in our Android manifest.xml, here we are going to add some user permission. So you'll just come hapa tu chini ya manifest before application, then you'll just say, then you say users. So we can just call users permission. So the permission we want to use is going to be read. So Android permission dot, then we'll say so permission dot, then we say read external storage. So close on this one, and then we'll do write external storage. So read, and then the other one is going to be write external storage. So that is going to at least allow us to work with some storage space. So ensure that you have that in your manifest. So with that, now we are done with our main activity. We have finished up with all the required functions. So now you can execute the app and see if you're able to add and save the record. So that was it for the SQLITE database. If you have any challenge, just remember that you can share, and the code also, I've linked the whole of this to the GitHub account where the code is, so you can always review to check if your code is correct. So see you then when we'll be doing some debugging and checking if our code is actually working perfectly. Goodbye, and that was it for database class.